Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit that subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss any of our great football content this season. Well, if you like college football, and I've been watching Josh Pate for a long time, but there are very few people that cut through like Josh. And there's no clicks involved. It's just knowledge and prep and work. He is newly married. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got an incredible job, and it looks like he can bench Delaware. So his shit is rolling right now. He is, Josh. It is a pleasure to have you on. So I don't like criticizing college athletes, but I have said, we'll start with this, that once they started making $5 million a year, you're a professional. Whatever level you play at, you're a professional, and Arch Manning can handle it. And I said, listen, I feel this way about Belichick's opener. There are games in which you struggle. I've seen Patrick Mahomes just have bad halves, bad Super Bowls. But with Arch, when he first rolled out to the right and skipped that thing about 8 yards shy, that was more than nerves. It was arm slot. It was mechanics. And he'll bounce back in the next 3 games. It's really second tier programs. But I don't think it's just hey, it was jitters. I had some concerns. I can't unsee it. And I know that's punitive and harsh, but this is Manning. I joked before the game, family dinners are events. I don't want to hear he was nervous. It was more than that. It was kind of jarring, was it not?
Yeah. I especially think if you bought into, I don't know, like the superheroification of him over the spring and summer. You think about this, he has only just now become a college football starting quarterback, and you and I have talked about him over half a decade. So we've known about him 6 years. And I don't think we've ever said that about anyone. So I go out there in the spring, watch him practice, feel my way around the building. Sark's really just open about stuff, especially when you get him off the record, that staff. The feedback wasn't, oh, we're worried about it. The feedback was, we really hope that the world's realistic about what we're doing here, about what we're going to put on the field. Because they never expected it to be like, the preview magazine culture expected it to be. So it wasn't a shock to me that they tried to ease him in. I think the jarring part for me, I was up there, I was standing on the field, is you didn't even have to watch secondary line of scrimmage. If you just put your eyes on him, you could tell the moment the ball came out of his hand. That's not a good ball. And
right.
That's not going anywhere fast. So I think that part, you get rattled, and at that point you're playing good defense, so you feel like you can just win a rock fight, and we'll tuck it back in, we'll go back home, we'll play a tomato can, we'll get ready for our trip to Florida, I think is their next really big game. So it wasn't as jarring to me because I never did the Heisman thing with him. I never did the Arch Manning #1 pick in the draft this upcoming year. My whole stance on him was, and it still is, he's going to be a pretty good quarterback this year. And anything above and beyond that, great. But it's Texas. You don't have to carry them. For that matter, Nussmeier doesn't have to carry LSU. Klubnik doesn't have to carry Clemson. A lot of these guys have really good supporting cast. He has got race horses around him. I question whether their speed at wide receiver is quite what it's been. But the whole concept of Texas is we're going to load the roster up, just make good decisions, be big in the leverage moments. He was not that in week 1, but you got a much bigger safety net under you now because of the structure of the playoff.
Yeah, and I'll get to a kid. I think first glances matter. And I follow high school recruiting, not as much as I used to, just because I have more things on my plate. But I'll just say, I don't know how good Michigan is. I love Oklahoma this weekend. I think if you look at Oklahoma's depth chart, that defense is juniors and seniors. That is an old team. They're at home. They got a lot of 22-year-old guys, and Mateer's a very talented quarterback. I think Oklahoma's going to have a day. But my first glance is at Bryce Underwood on YouTube in high school, and last week, Josh, that's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That is magic. And I know he's going on the road now. you needed about 4 snaps. I really think Underwood is, a lot of these 5-star guys, I never bought into Quinn Ewers. I mean, out in Southern California, I've heard a lot of 5-star recruits, and I'm like, I don't buy it. I always say LA recruits, 5's a 4, 4's a 3. They get overhyped. But I like Oklahoma this weekend. But what were your interpretations of Bryce Underwood?
Better than I thought he'd be, and I had really high expectations for him. I do not throw around the G word, okay? Generational. You should use that about once a generation. I believe that's the definition. He, even the guys I trust in the scouting world, the ones that assignate the star ratings, even when I listen to them coming up, the ones who are really careful with their language, they said that one's just different. Go watch him. And I don't think he came to Elite 11. So I went out there. I didn't get to see him in person, but eventually you get to see his high school stuff. Okay, it's high school. He goes to Michigan. I know it was New Mexico. 99% of the country didn't watch the game. I don't care if it was air. There is a way that superstars look. It does not take mountains and mountains, games and games of film. You just look at it and you say, whoa. Now that's not, like you said, it's not a guarantee that he's going to go light the world on fire this week. In fact, it could overinflate him to where he tries to do too much on the road against a Brent Venables defense, which has made like the Tuas of the world look inferior in years past. So I'm with you on the Oklahoma sort of dynamic this weekend, but long term, here's the way I viewed Michigan this whole year. They are not good at receiver. So they do not have the pass catchers to probably have him fully feature himself. But what is going to happen is everyone is going to see what you and I are talking about eventually, because it'll play out on the big stage. And they are going to be, I think, a portal magnet for wide receivers after the year. And I'm viewing Michigan 2025 through a 2026 prism, because I think 2026 they're right in the national championship conversation.
Yeah, I don't know that far ahead, and they're not good at receiver. By the way, if you go look at Jim Harbaugh recruiting through the years, he's never had good receivers. He didn't have them with Andrew Luck. Got in San Francisco, he had Michael Crabtree, and that was about it. Michigan, I mean, they were a run defense, squash, eat the clock up. But the ball comes out of Bryce Underwood's hand fast.
Very different.
I mean, it just doesn't look like other kids. All right, so much like the Arch Manning topic, my question with Belichick, and a friend of mine, Ryan Russillo, and I got on this years ago, about 7 years before Belichick got bounced in New England. Russillo and I used to always joke, we're like, he can't draft. He's sitting there with his dog in Nantucket on his iPad, and I'm like, he can't draft. And so what happens in the NFL, and it was Pete Carroll's undoing a little bit in Seattle, where there are coaches, Jimmy Johnson, Sean Payton, who are really, really, Sean McVay, really good with personnel. They really have an eye for it. Then there's guys like Kyle Shanahan, who I think are great play designers and play callers. I don't love their personnel view. And then there's Belichick, who's sort of tone deaf to offensive personnel. I don't think he's tone deaf to schemes, because he's the best defensive coach of my life. But his last 7 years in New England, I mean, they got a punter who was an all-pro. That was it. They couldn't draft anything. Interior O-line, sideline, quarterback. So my question was, why should I trust him in the transfer portal? I didn't like him drafting college kids. And when I watched Carolina, one of the first things after the first series that jumped out to me is TCU either had much better coaches or much better players, because there were a lot of guys running free in the second half. I mean pulling away from safeties and pulling away from linebackers. I just didn't see the talent. Now, again, the transfer portal, you're getting used cars a little bit. If Georgia wants to keep a guy, they're going to keep a guy. I thought it was, again, is it possible that Bill's not listen, Saban was a brilliant personnel guy. I don't think Belichick is. Am I wrong?
No.
Well, I'm fired up to announce Hard Rock Bet as the Volume's new presenting sponsor. Everybody knows Hard Rock hotels and casinos are iconic for entertainment. Well, now the Hard Rock Bet app brings more energy and excitement than ever to the world of sports betting. What does it mean for you? Well, here at the Volume, you'll start to see us use Hard Rock Bet's lines when talking about the biggest games, college or pro. We'll give you all the crazy stats from Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub, which is right there in the app. Plus, we'll be taking the show on the road, doing live broadcasts, meet and greets right from the Hard Rock properties down in Florida. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app's the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida. It's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, with more states coming soon. So right now is the perfect time to sign up. All you have to do is place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll score $150 in bonus bets on top of your winnings. That's $150 more dollars for you to bet this football season. If you're in New Jersey, you can also hit the Hard Rock Bet Casino app. It has all the same casino games you'd play at one of their properties. All your favorite games from Atlantic City. Practically everything you want to bet across every sport. All in the same top-rated, nearly 5-star app. So head over, sign up today. Join us as we get this party started with Hard Rock Bet. And roll with us all football season.
I mean, I actually wish I did disagree with you. I completely agree with you. I looked at the dynamic. Look, I mean, take a step back for a second. So I didn't even understand the circus around it, period. I got when Dion came to Colorado, that is a massive circus coming to town. Not even in a pejorative way. I got that. A lot of people in my world made this huge deal about Belichick coming to North Carolina, and maybe I just don't pay attention enough to like mainstream sports talk. So I didn't get it. But that's just me. That's my personal preference. So then I start hearing these rumblings like, boy, they got a workable schedule this year. And I started to pick up what people were putting down because the connotation there was, ooh, they could do something this year. And I know the personnel they have. It's terrible. And so I was looking at it saying, what are you saying about the schedule? Like, come out and say it. No one wanted to say it. So I finally got some people to admit, yeah, I think it's Belichick. It's a workable schedule. He could, I got the cattle prod theory. He could cattle prod college football this year. I was like, if that's your expectation for him, you're in for a very rude awakening, and so is the rest of America. Like, I didn't get it initially. I thought people understood he's coming in there and, you know, it's a big show and it's going to raise the profile of Carolina football, but the expectation's largely to do what Carolina's done. I was so tone deaf on it. When I realized people's expectations were he's actually going to elevate them to the level of maybe a fringe playoff contender, I was so out so quickly on it for 50 different reasons. But one of them is the one you talked about. I never talk about NFL. College football is my space, but I didn't think he did a great job at all of the personnel side of things. The last several years he was in the NFL, or he'd probably still be in the NFL. And then the next part of that is, all right, if you're telling me that you want him to be more than a 7 or 8 win per year on average guy, which is Carolina football historically, well, that means he's got to do better in talent acquisition. And that also means you got to beat Clemson for kids. You've got to occasionally beat Miami or Florida State for kids. He's just not going to do that. I don't know if you've gotten in the weeds a little bit and read some of the stuff that I've been hearing for months has now sort of started to go public about the impressions that recruits or portal kids have had, the experiences they've had. They don't know how to do it, man. And it's no knock on them. They've never had to do it. Think about it this way. Like if you're watching right now and you're mainly NFL and like you just dip your toe into college, Nick Saban, I think, is the best to ever do it. He got to his early 70s. After a lifetime in college football, a lifetime of mastering talent acquisition. And he said, this isn't really for me anymore. Belichick at the same age is trying it for the first time. He's older than any 3 of his players combined. Yeah. And he's trying that for the first time. I never even gave a passing thought to, oh, this will work. Of course it won't work. I was stunned and still am that people think it will work.
Yeah, you know, and what's interesting about, you know, in pro football, you draft the player, but in college football, the player selects you. So if you're around Nick Saban, he's funny. I've been around him a couple of times. He's funny. Mario Cristobal, Dan Lanning, they're dynamic men. Brian Kelly.
They've got the personalities you have to sell.
Yes, they're salesmen. And by the way, it's not all they do. Bill's better schematically than a lot of guys. But there are almost, I mean, you'd have to go back to Don James at Washington in the 70s and 80s, where a guy was fairly personality-less and was a really good recruiter. And I always thought James was doing it with coaching and staff composition. Their personnel was good. I don't think it was as good. It's never been. It was, even in Don's best heyday, they had a couple, the Steve Ettman defenses were stacked, but basically they did it. They were just the smartest staff. He had just, they always had the best special teams, kind of like Frank Beamer. They'd beat you on special teams and defense. You never thought it was the most creative offense, but you get them in Blacksburg, get them in Husky Stadium, they win a lot of games. But by and large, Belichick is kind of grumpy. Mike Lombardi, a smart guy. He's got that sort of Jersey gruffness. It reminds me a little of Charlie Weiss. Remember when he thought he had this schematic advantage? And after a while, you're like, Charlie, you're O-lineman, you're D-lineman at Notre Dame should be O-lineman. You're not pulling the players. And I think it's got a Charlie Weiss feel.
I am telling you, one of the lines point blank that a head coach gave me, top 15, like playoff caliber program. He said, You know how big a slap in the face it is to listen to the media tell us, a guy who has never coached college a day in his life in the last several decades, is going to come teach us something. Like Bill Belichick's going to come teach college football something. He said college football will teach him 10 times more than he's about to teach college football. Because the other thing about it is the insinuation is guys are either schematics guys, X's and O's guys, or they're talent acquirers. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's an A or a B. When you get to the higher portion of the college football pyramid, I know this shocks some people, Colin. Some have both. Georgia's got both. Like Clemson's got both. They can get the talent better than you. They can also outcoach you. So unless you're going to go and really convince me that you're going to out-recruit them, which you're not, or you're going to out-develop them and scheme them, not once or twice in your career, you may do that, but you got to do it about 10 or 11 times in a year to be able to get to the playoff, then I'm out on them achieving anything more than Carolina football historically has.
I think the SEC, every time the SEC loses a game, it's like the sky is falling. Listen, LSU went into Clemson and won. That's a really big boy football win. The SEC is going to be fine. But I do think there is a distinction between the SEC. The Big Ten now is better than it was 5 years ago, no question. And the SEC is still really good. But losing Saban, it's like losing LeBron James in the Eastern Conference going west. It's not the same conference. The Kalen DeBoer thing is interesting. When he was at Washington, there was an understanding. It was one of, and I just read this the other day somewhere, where coaches, how coaches sometimes, pro scouts and pro coaches will come to college stuff in off season, and people were saying about Kalen DeBoer, why are you leaving, man? You got no pressure up here. And they love college football in Seattle, but they got the Seahawks and the Mariners. It's a bigger city. And they said, man, you got it made up here. And I think it is hard. It's one thing to replace Nick Saban, but I think DeBoer's personality is the polar opposite. And I think the program had a certain urgency and intensity built in by Nick. And I don't think they tried to divert from that. I just think Kalen DeBoer was the best candidate. I think Alabama sort of liked that, sometimes, dialing it up on the sidelines, getting in players' faces. They weren't offended by that. You see Kirby Smart do it. In the South, that's much more understood, where it's just more intense and they get more restless and it's louder with the media. But I made the argument today, I'm not sure Kalen's a great personality fit. I watched Jim McElwain unravel. I saw it eat up Urban Meyer's health. And I do wonder if Kalen I think he's a terrific coach, but he may be better at Michigan, right? Like he may be better at like Washington and Michigan. It does feel different than Alabama. And it's what separates Alabama from the other program. I always said Ohio State's the only SEC team north. It's different in Columbus than Ann Arbor. I wonder about Kalen. The more I read, I think he's safe. I guess I should start with that. Do you think he's safe for now?
100% safe, yes.
You want your master's degree. You can earn it, but life gets busy. Yeah, you got a packed schedule, the late nights, and then there's the unexpected. American Public University, APU, was built for all of it. Monthly starts, no set login times. APU's 40-plus flexible online master's programs are designed to move at the speed of life. Start your master's journey today at apu.apus.edu. You want it? Come and get it at APU. You bring the fire, we'll fuel the journey. Get started today. apu.apus.edu. Okay, so but is it possible personality does matter? Kirby Smart, that's an SEC personality. He's just going to sell it to you straight. Or do you think Kalen DeBoer just turns this puppy around in 3 weeks?
Boy, this is a pregnant pause. So I don't know if he's going to turn it around this year. I got to tell you, so to get back to the personality thing for a second, that was one of my suspicions. I remember when he took the job, I know him pretty well. So when he took the job, after all the dust settled, I go down there a few times a year. I'll go down there and watch him practice. I'll go down there and watch him scrimmage. I'm sitting there in his office with him. And what I wanted to know was the whole taking over for a legend thing, not what you're saying at the press conferences. Like, I wanted to know eye to eye, shoot with me. How do you view that? And to, not like ruin confidence or anything like that, but he couldn't have cared less about that. What he wanted to make sure he had was the proper resources, because he is a one percenter. He may have a different personality than Saban, but please, like anyone watching, make no mistake, he, when you open the hood on him, is every bit as competitive as the highest level achievers in this sport. What he looked at is not who am I taking over for. What he looked at is, am I going to be given everything I need to win? Because I know what the expectation level is going to be. Now, I will say there is no substitute for jumping into freezing cold water. When you jump into it, anyone's body is going to lurch. So I think he has had a bit of that, but the you don't want to take over for a legend thing in college football has always needed an asterisk next to it that it hasn't had. You didn't want to take over Penn State post Paterno, even without the off the field stuff. You didn't want to take it over because he stuck around 20 years past his prime. So you had a rebuild on your hands. Bowden, FSU, you were going to have a rebuild on your hands with sky high expectations. Saban's last game was a playoff game. So you had a pretty full cupboard.
Yeah.
And, guys like him look at it and say, well, my words, not his, screw who was here before. Like, I'm a 1%er too. I wake up in the morning, look in the bathroom mirror. I think I could be the greatest of all time if I'm being given what I need. Now, he's got this demeanor that is the antithesis of that attitude. And that's kind of what you're talking about. A lot more laid back. And when you've watched Saban roam the sidelines for 15 years and, scream at female trainers because the water's not full enough, then you get Kalen DeBoer and there's music at practice. And it's a bunch of anecdotal stuff. It's a bunch of straw man stuff that if you won would be a credit to him, but because he loses is a detriment to him. But I think, now this is where rubber meets the road. You could get away with what happened last year because there is a little bit of transition. They did lose some players. Caleb Brown, like, you don't replace him. There was some staff churn as well. You cannot, in any circumstances, have what happened against Florida State. And so, again, you let the dust settle a little bit. You ask around. Colin, I think they were stunned by it. I don't think they were coming. I was down there a couple of weeks ago, watched them scrimmage. It was war. It was unbelievable. It was every bit as physical as a Nick Saban practice, as a Kirby Smart practice, to the point where I thought they were getting guys hurt. I thought they were about to get guys hurt before the season started. And the reason I mentioned that is because it was the total antithesis of what we saw against Florida State. Guys looked slow. Guys looked timid. Guys didn't look physical, didn't look tough. And it was so jarring because I know my eyes didn't lie to me. I'm standing there with football-minded people, and we're all in agreement, right? This is a pretty physical practice, pretty impressive looking secondary. So I think they were just as stunned by it as anyone else. So they got UL Monroe this weekend, but they go to Georgia within the month. Like, they are going to play LSU this year. They are going to play Tennessee this year. And there are so many questions in the South right now. Everyone else hates Bama, and they love this. And then the Bama folks hate what they saw, and they're trying to figure out, like, do we defend this guy, or do we not expose ourselves to getting our feelings hurt again? Do we call for his ouster? And in reality, everyone wants to know one reason why it happened, one soundbite, one snapshot. It's probably 37 small things. And that's the trouble, because you can't fix 37 little small things in a week. I am dumbfounded by what I saw against Florida State. Now, I will say this. I think Bama's the first one and not the last one to be kind of exposed. They just happen to play quality enough competition in week one. It could be we got some top 15, top 10 caliber teams elsewhere that just happen to be favored by 40 in week one. And so they're tougher competition, and maybe their exposure period is still to come. But I got to tell you, man, it's hard to trust a team. I picked them to win the national title. So it was a tough Saturday for me. It is hard, even if they do rebound. Even if they come out with their hair on fire, beat Wisconsin, go to Georgia, down to the wire, they win 30-27, season's back on track. Yeah, it would be back on track. I can't ignore that the Florida State game happened. Once that's in the cake, it's baked in there somewhere. So I can't fully trust it again, but that doesn't matter. They can win without me trusting them. It is a tough task for him right now.
It was interesting. I love to see all the Florida schools really good, and I'll wait for the Gators, but I mean, Florida State, Norvell can recruit. Mario Cristobal's an unbelievable recruiter. I mean, they looked like, I mean, they had a swagger. They were physical. That O-line is something else. That's what he does. I mean, it was Les Miles who used to build good O-lines. That thing was just, Notre Dame couldn't get a pass rush. And my kind of takeaway is the SEC has always needed the state of Florida. And I'm like, I'm not sure Mario's letting a lot out of Dade County, because that and Norvell, I looked at those teams, I'm like, those boy, this is real football. And I remember when I was in Vegas out of college, they used to put the Florida State game on at 9 a.m. out west. I'm not joking. That's how college football's grown. Now you have the big noon kickoff, but for about 15 years there was a hole early in the day. That's why Fox went after it. I mean, it used to be college football biggest games they put at 9 a.m, and it's all of a sudden, oh wait, this has a big audience. We got to push this back in the afternoon. But when I was watching Miami this weekend, I've always felt, Josh, there's 3 glamour programs in the country. USC, Texas, and Miami. Doesn't mean they're the best, but they're glamour programs. They're sex appeal. Austin, Coral Gables, Los Angeles. They feel different. Kirk Herbstreit once said when Pete Carroll was at USC, he goes, "It's not pro, but it's not college either. Yeah. It's somewhere in the middle." So I'm rooting for Lincoln Riley. I'm really rooting for Mario Cristobal and Steve Sarkisian. Is Miami? I mean, Notre Dame's legit. I mean, they jumped out to a 21-7 lead. I thought that thing was going to get ugly. I mean, Carson Beck has time. I always feel like it's hard not to be legitimate, college or pro. Penn State this year, if you have a dominant offensive line, could be the Eagles or the Lions or the Ravens in the NFL. It could be Penn State this year. And I watch Miami's O-line, Josh, and I'm like, oh, they can play with anybody. If Carson Beck may not be great, but with time, I don't know. My interpretation of Miami was they're going to be a handful. Football season's here, and if you want to go to an NFL or college football game, Game Time is the place for you. The Game Time app just gives you the advantage back to you, the fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. I love it. Easy to use. The Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price, 100%. So they even let you preview your seat on the app. That's special. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay every time. Take the guesswork out of buying professional football tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account. If you use the code Colin, COLIN, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code COLIN, $20 off, swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today.
First off, think about what you just said about the glamour programs. And there was an extended stretch there where college football is just surging. Yep. USC, Texas, and Miami are nowhere to be found.
That's
that
right.
Doesn't disprove your point. What it says is imagine the turbo booster that adds to that scalability if they're all collectively viable.
Did you see the Texas Ohio State number today? 17 million people watched.
Noon, man. Noon. Unbelievable. Big noon kickoff's going nowhere, dude. Yeah, that was unbelievable. I've always defended the noon kickoffs. I love them because I can get home that night. And the sunburn on the forehead's still there from Saturday, but I loved it. Yeah. So I can't remember when it was. It was like before their Wake Forest game last week. I flew down to Miami to visit with the staff, watched practice. When I go to Miami practice, Mario brings you right out there on the field. You stand right behind the line of scrimmage during good on good. And he says, he's giving you play-by-play as practice is going on. He says, I want you to watch something. I want you to keep an eye on 70. So 70, I don't have my eye on him. He's in my peripheral vision. It's a kid named Markel Bell. It is now their starting left tackle. He is 6'9", 360 at this point last year. He says, watch this. We got this kid out of JUCO in Mississippi. So he steps in. I've never seen humanity like that. I've just never seen humanity move like that. He said, not this year. Next year, just circle number 70 next year. So you got Francis Mawanoa at right tackle, who's a surefire first day NFL guy. Left tackle the other night. I think a lot of the world got introduced to Markel Bell. They have built that thing. They have built that offensive line the way that you would expect Mario Cristobal to build an offensive line. But what ate them up last year was the obvious. They wasted Cam Ward, just like LSU wasted Jaden Daniels a couple of seasons ago. LSU course corrected with their defensive hires, and now they're reaping the benefits. Mario went to Minnesota and got Corey Heatherman. And first thing I asked him is it a 2-year thing? He said, no, we're about to hit the portal. We will get this thing fixed. And so, okay, everyone can say that. They get through spring. They get halfway into fall camp. I check in again. And a lot of the feedback from Miami, Colin, was running game's going to be there. We've got no question about Carson Beck. Everyone questioning him. They'll be silenced soon enough. But I kept being told, watch our secondary, because that'll be the key to our season, because we could not stop anything through the air last year. We think we hit on all these guys out of the portal. And if we're right, it is the portal, so it's a crapshoot. But if we're right, then there's no limit to what we can do this year. So it's a 1-game sample size, new quarterback and CJ Carr on the road. There wasn't a lot of business to be had through the air against them the other night either. And so if that's the case, if they hit on quarterback, early returns they did. If that secondary is even just a net neutral, much less a positive, they are like the Swiss Army knife. That's what I prefer in a team, to pick them. I want to know that you could win a game 38-31 if you need to. I love you in a 19-16 slugfest too. They're the kind of team that's very multifaceted, but I don't want to get excited because consistency and performance has bitten them. Late game situationals have bitten them. So again, it is trust but verify with Miami. But if they are back, think about what we saw from Clemson the other night. Not a conference game, but think about what we saw from Georgia Tech. Clemson goes to Tech in a few weeks. Think about the ACC, Florida State. Miami goes to Florida State within the month. Like, the ACC is about to have the volume turned up on it really quick, and I cannot handicap that thing right now. That thing's up in the air.
Yeah, Mario struggled on the road at Oregon. He did not struggle in recruiting. He did not struggle at home. He would go on the road. Sometimes his clock management, we saw that against Notre Dame, a little dubious, but I love Miami, and it fires me up. Let's end with this. And by the way, for the regular listeners of my show, when I noticed Josh Pate over 2 years ago, I had told people, I'm like, this kid, he even knows West Coast football. And a lot of Southern college football writers don't really follow it, and you do.
They don't go out there, Colin. They don't go out. If they'd go to – I had to go to a Washington game to get it. But when I went for that Oregon game a couple of years ago, I got it. When I went to a Utah game, I love it out there. Now, people in the South think I'm lying when I say that. I ain't lying about it, man. It's unbelievable if you can get out there. It's just, I grew up in rural Georgia. So, Seattle might as well be on the moon. Eugene might as well be Russia to us. But if you ever get out there, it's awesome.
So I like Lincoln Riley. I know him. But if you don't follow recruiting, until a year ago, they really didn't aggressively recruit Los Angeles. Right. And it was very off-putting to the people here. It'd be like, Kirby Smart ignoring Georgia. Now they've gone full bore into it, and they have 1 or 2 or top 3 recruiting class in 2026. It's a lot of Southern California kids, as it should be. I think kids, when you recruit the local kid, mom and dad are in town, they're less likely to get in trouble. Mom and dad read the paper. I like the local kid. They're showing off for their buddies and their friends. You get away from home sometimes, it can change a young man's personality. I don't know if Lincoln Riley can create a culture. I know he can coach. I mean, he 12 wins, 11 wins, 9 wins, 11 wins at Oklahoma. When he took over USC, I'm here to tell you, man, they had about 28-30. I was told this by somebody on Lincoln's staff. They had about 30 guys that could play at USC, and very few were good. Their best players were Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison, and then they were coming from other programs. But I don't know if he's a culture builder. I've watched last year they go to Maryland. I mean, they led in almost every football game. They couldn't close games out, and closing games out is fundamentally about physicality. It's a 7-minute drive. Winning games comes in a variety of forms. Closing games out when you lead is physical football. 3 first downs, close it down. They couldn't do it. Their running back room is good. Do you have the same doubts I do about, we know he can call plays. We know he's clever. I didn't even like their quarterback at UNLV when they got him. I thought, like, I watched him in the opener. I watched him last year. I'm like, well, he's better than he was at UNLV. I didn't think he was an elite player, but the reports out of USC is Lincoln really likes him. But do you have concerns about USC and culture building? Because there's a lot of, what makes Sean McVay great is not the schematics. Is the guy may be 5'10", he feels like he's 6'8". Yep. He's like, he walks there, he's half Abe Lincoln, half Nick Saban. He's like, He is half Warren Buffett. Like, it's just big. And Lincoln can kind of be soft spoken, kind of be feel sometimes indifferent to certain kind of conversations. Where do you land on him?
I think you have to be, you're in a really unique position because you get to be in the room with a lot of those guys. At the college level, I get to sit down with all of them. Most people don't get that. Most people may find themselves at some meet and greet one-on-one with their head coach, but they don't have the comparative analysis ability. I agree with your assessment about him. It is I got two big questions about him. One is the culture piece. There's a lot of noise coming from Brent Venables in the past couple of weeks about what they inherited there. You could pass that off as sour grapes. He could be shooting to you straight. I think it's worth paying attention to. And so when Lincoln goes to USC, thus far, what you described is what makes a great coordinator. But he's not the coordinator there. He's a head coach. So you got to be able to do more than just call plays and coach a position. It's about getting talent. It's about developing the talent. Now, one piece that they did is when they went and got Chad Bowden, the GM from Notre Dame, they were going to take in-state recruiting seriously. Like, that was going to get turned up. I am very interested to see whether proof of performance on the field this year is necessary to keep that class together. That's one thing that I'm watching. The other thing that I've asked Chad about this, I've asked him, do you talk about like locking down the city, locking down the state? Do you really think there's enough line of scrimmage talent in the state of California anymore?
Good question.
He said yes. I disagree with that. But you know, he's running USC. I'm not. But even if all the talent's there, even if all the players are there, I have never thought that one possession loss metric is randomized. Turnovers sometimes are randomized year to year.
Yeah, turnovers are.
Dude, Nebraska kept losing one possession games because they didn't know how to win games. USC last year, the 5 fourth quarter leads that they lost, that's because they didn't possess the ability to take a game. And then go look at Kirby Smart in one possession games. He's got an incredible record. That's not by accident. So the question is, do you just flip that once you get better players? You may have less one possession games when you have better players, but the bottom line is even the best of the best are eventually going to find themselves in those positions. And you start talking playoff instead of let's make a bowl. That's a tightrope walk 100 feet off the ground instead of 10 feet off the ground. You fall 10 feet, it hurts. You fall 100, street pizza. So what you said is still in the back of my mind. Totally fair. And I don't think anyone inside USC, I don't think Lincoln himself can really push back on that, because if he's honest, if you inject truth serum in him, he knows what it comes down to. You got to prove it. You don't say it, you got to prove it.
I was talking to a USC booster today, and I said that Illinois game.
That's it.
I said, I
said that's the hinge game.
They're not winning at Oregon. That's okay. They're probably not winning at Notre Dame. They're going to win their home games. I said, I don't know if they can win in Illinois if it's 39 degrees or 42 or windy. I said, that is the kind of game where, and Illinois is good. I think, this year they return a lot of guys on their lines. Offensive line, I think they may return 4 or 5 starters. Illinois is my dark horse team in the country. I don't think they're great, but I think they're really good, and they're going to knock people off. And if it's 44, I'm taking Illinois. I'll tell you right now, if it's 42, 44, Lincoln Riley has not proven he can win that game with discomfort. Josh Pate, what a pleasure. We're going to make this a regular thing on Wednesdays for our audience. I hope you guys enjoyed it listening as much as I did. I just have great admiration for your prep, your intensity. You're obviously a very bright guy. I love your work, and I want to say thank you. And this is the start of a lot of these sit-downs, and I loved it.
Love it, man. Love you, brother. I appreciate you having me. Can't wait for the rest of the year.